Actually, one thing surprised me when I read the comments of my Xiaomi Mi Max 2 preview. That was the fact that so many commenters focused on the part that the Xiaomi Mi Max 2 is such a huge phone. But honestly, what did you expect at 6.44 inches? I don't really know, but what I know is the fact that if you wanna go big, especially in this quite, I would say, affordable price range, the Mi Max 2 is pretty much the one to go for. Why exactly? Let's see. Okay, first of all, design. I have to say, for its size, it actually packs quite a big battery in a quite thin chassis, as you can see here. And it actually feels also very nice. Of course, it feels big, and one-hand usability will be pretty much impossible. But the rest, especially you can see here, nice rounded corner, and it feels very comfortable in the hand. One thing that I read also in the comments is that the old one still was flexing a lot and people had issues with the construction. Yes, as you can see here, it can be bent a little bit. But considering how big this is, I feel that this is very solid because I really have to hardly bend to make any sort of flex. So I would say it's very solid, especially since it feels very solid. So this is all nice. It feels great. And then, of course, it's big. Of course, the bezels, I would say, especially for this price range, are still quite moderate. We have a notification LED, we have capacitive buttons, and on the back we can already see the fingerprint reader, which for me is, I have to just say, too high up top. But once I reach it, it is nice because as you can see here, it reacts quite nice. There are first the turn on times there, but the actual just recognition works really, really good. So I'm okay with that position, of course, if you hold it longer or if you have bigger hands, which I guess you will have since you use this phone or want to use this phone, you will have no problem with that. Otherwise, you can see, of course, the LED with the camera. Once again, as on pretty much all Xiaomi phones, we have an IR blaster, microphone, and the headphone jack, SD card, and SIM card tray. On the bottom, we have this is the one speaker that works in tandem with the dual speaker system here for the highs, USB Type-C, and here would be another microphone. The buttons, I would say, work out really nice because as you can hear, nice clicky feedback, also nice tactile feedback, and position quite okay, still quite on the larger side, but that was to be expected from a bigger phone, so this is all fine. So that's why I would say, let's go into the next thing, that would be already the display. Because if we check that as on any other Xiaomi phone, we get automatic contrast or increased contrast and standard, but only in automatic you can actually change the color temperature, which is something that I personally still don't quite understand why that is the case. But then I have to say, this display, I will give it a really good, because maybe just because of the resolution not being all that high on this big display, but otherwise it would be actually, just in terms of quality, actually a really good, because the white is nice, backlight, or I mean IPS glow is absolutely on a normal level, colors feel very nice, and overall it just looks absolutely pleasing. As you can see here, the white, the blacks, all solid, and it is the calibration that has been done really well, and this is something very important for me because it actually is more important than the quality itself is sometimes, because the calibration, if it is off, you can't really change much, and here it is absolutely fine. With about 500 lux, it's also bright enough, especially for this big display. This is absolutely fine. Viewing angles are stable, of course, they don't look that extremely stable. But yeah, absolutely fine, really good as I said. Now, let's talk about the speaker here. For me, if you want the rating of a very good speaker, you need at least a dual speaker or front-facing speaker system, and it has to be a good dual speaker system, which this one has, and that's why it gets my very good rating. Otherwise, it would be topping out at really good, but it doesn't, because it is very loud. Due to the quite big device, we also have a nice kind of immersive effect, because we have the highs on the earpiece and the mids and lows from the bottom, and this provides a really nice, warm, high quality, top solid and loud sound, and especially for games this is nice. So yeah, not that many phones that can do it better. There are a few phones, but definitely in this price range for this size, absolutely no problems. Same goes for the headphone jack. That one is, I would say, still good, because we have some extra options like we do on all Xiaomi phones. So this is pretty much a common thing. So yeah, all fine. Now, performance, and since this is using, you know what, the Snapdragon 625, which is my most favorite chip still to date, because it just delivers in all aspects, especially battery life, but it's also the performance, because just yesterday I got a comment, someone said the Snapdragon 625 is a bad SoC, and I don't know what he meant, because as you can see here, this is so nice, and especially super well optimized from Xiaomi side, which is actually really more important, because this could be one of the best, if not the best Snapdragon 625 phone, because it is so lag free, so smooth, and especially super consistent. Of course, with 4 gigs of RAM, it is also really delivering a well done multitasking experience, because as you can see here, the delay that we usually get from Xiaomi with this tab is actually way less visible than on the higher power Xiaomi Mi 6, so I'm really happy with that. So whoever says it is not a good performer, I don't know what he expects, because of course this is not a high-end flagship, but it is actually the more consistent experience that is way more important for me, and this is totally what you will get in all aspects. So yeah, maybe not always as smooth, maybe not always as capable, but for everyday normal tasks, absolutely superb for a mid-ranger, absolutely. Now, games also run absolutely fine, especially on this big display. They are nice to look at because everything still also runs very nice, and the Snapdragon 625 is able to deliver, I would say, moderate frame rates, and especially since this device is so big, it can transfer heat very easily, therefore it never heats up. You will have no real issues. Of course, some minor frame drops are always there on any device, so this is not a problem. It doesn't get warm, doesn't throttle, no problems here. Also, you can play all the games that you would like to with absolutely nice performance, and that's why I would say let's get to the big thing here, not just the big battery, but the big battery life. A full charge takes 2.5 hours, which maybe is not as fast as some of the more quick charger phones with about 1.5 hours, but of course you also have to consider 5,300 milliamp hours of battery, and that is highly impressive. 5% for 1 hour of YouTube is also super impressive, and only one phone matched that value, and maybe it was even a little bit better, which was the Lenovo P2. But it's the battery life. I would say I got about 12 hours of mobile data use, but that is screen on time, and about 16, I would say, on Wi-Fi. Of course, this is though to be seen as plus values. You can get at least that and even higher, but it's so hard to actually tell this properly because the bigger the battery life, the more differences could be from user to user. But this is why I got, and this is only beaten topped by one phone that I've reviewed so far, the Lenovo P2, which is actually closer than I expected, because every time it actually looked more like it would reach like 10 hours, but the longer it actually stretches that battery charge, it is closer to 12 or, like I said, 16 on Wi-Fi. So highly impressive. Big battery also means with MIUI's optimization a very good standby range, which is nice to see. So let's get into the next thing, the software. And this is actually one thing that I don't want to talk too much about, because what I like is actually MIUI by now in terms of features, because we have customizable quick settings, we have a theme engine that works very nice. But there are just a few things missing. We still don't have multi-window. This will come, I guess, with MIUI 9.0. But of course, there are some minor things. But I like the customization, because here in the notifications, you can see you have a lot of options here. Collapse on touch, you have dual instance. Under additional settings, you still have the quick ball, that you can, as you can see here, launch the ball and have extra options. So yes, there is a lot there, and I've shown this already on so many videos. But what I also have to talk about is the following. This is running MIUI 8.5 stable 8.5.11, and I got an update a few days ago, but I also have to say the following. This is the Chinese official ROM, and that's why it just isn't stable yet with Google services. So I have Google services running, but for example, things like WhatsApp that don't need Google services run absolutely fine. But Google services have a problem, because Gmail works, but as you, I don't want to show my emails, they work, but you get every time a little bit of an error message, but the rest works fine. It does sync sometimes. Something like YouTube Studio didn't work, so you will just have to keep that in mind. But what I also know, but I didn't really bother to make that because I got it confirmed from Trading Shenzhen, where I got the phone from, that he's already running the global ROM or the EU ROM, and that one works absolutely fine. So Google Play services all work, notifications all get done, and that is important, because the way I have mine, I used mine and reviewed mine, it didn't work fully stable yet with a few things, especially Google services, but I know this is already kind of fixed by now. So that's why I would say let's go into, this was wrong and this was even wronger. Sorry. I kinda changed something. Sorry. Okay, let's talk about the front-facing camera here. And as you can see, one thing that I'm really surprised how good this one is. And as you can see, super sharp and detailed in every situation. If you are closer or even further away, it maintains a lot of details. Here as well, as you can see here, a lot of details, very sharp. Colors look absolutely correct. Exposure seems fine. Everything else here the same. And even more so surprising indoors, because just look at those details in normal light. And this is absolutely impressive in my opinion. And that's why I will give it an almost great. Maybe I could already give it a grade, but I just need a little bit of room. And if we, for example, now see the video, this as well, very nice and sharp, detailed. Of course, this not quite on par with the photos, which was to be expected, but I cannot say anything else but absolutely impressed actually by the front-facing camera, which I did not expect to be on that level, because even many flagships can't quite reach that level. So I'm happy to see that. Now, a low light cam here with the flash and without the flash actually quite okay, and I would say it is a quite good low light camera. It tends to slightly overexpose pictures a little bit, they seem a little bit too bright, but details are maintained, so oh cool. Now outside with good lighting you can see nice amount of details. Of course it's not super detailed, but especially something like the autofocus worked mostly quite reliable and it picked up quite nice. It still also here tends to slightly overexpose just a little bit, but as you can see here, even though this is a very crowded picture, it maintains all the details, so nothing gets completely mushy or something like that. And here as well, autofocus work nice, shutter times work nice, and I have no problem calling this a very good camera, because especially here, for example, you can see all the little details with the nice bokeh effects. So well done, well done. And it is actually a better camera than I expected, and I said in my first impressions video where I said that this is just about what you should expect. Actually, it is more than I would have expected, which is absolutely nice to see. Now, 4K video. This is the only thing, because what you will see in a few seconds is how good the actual quality is and how sharp it is and how detailed. But what you will also see, of course, some artifacting that is but quite normal on 4K. Here, the autofocus works quite good if you really force it to. But what you will see in a few more seconds is that it is a little bit overly nervous, especially now. For example, check how many details and how sharp this looks. And this is something that many higher end phones don't achieve. But you can also see the more I move it, the more overly nervous the autofocus gets, which is the one slight drawback for now. But they could actually fix this. 1080p though, I would say pretty much just forget it, because it's just so much more blurry, just so much less detailed that I don't think it's really worth talking about. And that's why I would say we should already go to the pros and cons. And here to be called out is at first the very good design and build, absolutely no problems, everything feels so high quality. Then a really reliable fingerprint reader, even though it's maybe not the fastest, it is reliable, which is important. We get a really good display, almost actually very good, just because of the, let's say, kinda low resolution on this big display. We get a very good speaker, a good headphone jack as well, along with very good performance, insane battery life, very good UI after all, if you don't consider the stability issues with the Chinese ROM. In terms of cameras, we get an almost great front-facing camera, a quite good low-light cam, a very good main camera, and in my opinion, a very good, or maybe at least good camera if you don't consider the autofocus issues. And for about 270 euros, I think the value is absolutely nice. Now, what's not that great? Obviously, it's huge, but that was to be expected. As I said, the Chinese ROM is not fully stable, even though the global seems to be. Then nougat features are still kind of lacking, some things like multi-window and so on. Then also the slightly overly nervous autofocus, no band 20, which could be an issue for some people depending on which bands you need, and it usually has to be imported. But to make this quite quick, for a price of around 270 euros, if you want a phone that is big, like a phablet at around 6 inches and above, I think this is pretty much the only way to go for, because I have not really reviewed anything in that size category, but there are phones maybe to be called out, or phablets like the Honor 8 Note. I have not used it. It could be even better because it has the higher resolution and so on, but if you want a workhorse that kind of already replaces a tablet for you, that you can do everything on it, but it will also hold up for many, many days, which in my, I guess, like 3-4 days should be no problem, or even for the heavier user, this should be the one, because let's just see it like it is. For 270 euros, you pretty much make no proper compromises, especially things like design, display, sound, performance, battery life, software. Like I said, this is something to keep it in mind, kept in mind, but even the camera absolutely knows to deliver. And the not that great stuff, yeah, software can improve, and with MIUI 9 it will, I guess. Slightly over autofocus they could also fix, but the rest is so nice that I really don't know what else to say. I'm actually impressed. It is of course way too big for me, because one-hand usability is pretty much a non-starter, but for what it is, a big phone, this is kind of the one to go for, I would say. But if I'm wrong or not, let me know that in the comments, because maybe you have a bigger phablet that you would like to recommend, so leave that down in the comments. But especially from my first impressions, I didn't really see anyone saying something, and you don't really have to point out that it's big. I guess, who didn't see that coming? I don't know. Okay, have a nice day. Until next time, bye.